Now that you know how to navigate your perspective, as well as rotate, scale, stretch, and move an object, we are going to combine basic shapes to make a whole new object, like our ray gun for our keychain robot. Let's start by deleting the pyramid we were working with. Click on the object in your work plane and press the delete key on your keyboard. Now take a look at the panel on your right and scroll through the objects under the Basic Shapes tab. Let's start by making the body of our ray gun. Drag the sphere shape into the work plane. Now, we are going to stretch that sphere into a longer elliptical shape by holding down our left mouse or trackpad button on one of the white corners and dragging it to the right. Take a moment to navigate around your new shape and see it from all sides. Now that we have the body, let's make a hand grip for our ray gun and attach it to the body. Drag a box shape into the work plane from the Shapes panel on the right. Now let's stretch it into a thinner rectangle that could act as a hand grip. Remember, you may need to navigate around the work plane to get a better idea of how to stretch and scale your objects. We need to make sure that the width of the hand grip is less than the body of our ray gun. The easiest way to do this is to just move the grip approximately to where we want it to go on the body, and see if it sticks out at all on all sides. If you need to, make it thinner or thicker by just stretching the object again. Now we are almost ready to merge the two objects we have made, the body and the hand grip of the ray gun. But we need to align the two objects and move the body off the work plane so that more of the hand grip is exposed. First, let's align the objects so that the hand grip is perfectly in the middle of the body. Start by holding down the Shift key and click on both objects. Then, in the upper right of the screen, click the icon with the two rectangular bars on it, which is the Alignment tab. You will notice that several thick lines with black dots on them appear on the grid. The dot we are interested in is the middle dot coming on the short side. When we click this, it will make sure that the centers of our objects are perfectly aligned along that axis. The other dots will align in other ways. Take a few moments to try out some of the other alignment options. Now, let's undo our actions to get back to our first alignment by pressing Command-Z or using the backwards arrow at the top of our screen. Next, we have to move the body off the work plane so that our two objects look like the basic shape of a ray gun. Click on the body and then click and hold down the black arrow icon at the top of the object and move it off the work plane. Now, navigate around the ray gun and check your work. Make any adjustments you might need so that you are happy with the overall shape. Now that we have our shapes aligned and in the proper position, we are going to merge or group the two so that they become one solid object. Do this by selecting both objects while holding down the Shift key. Then, click on the icon that looks like a square with a rounded corner in the upper right of the screen to the right of the light bulb icon. This is the grouping button. Notice that now instead of two shapes with different colors, there is now only one shape, and you can no longer independently select the hand grip or the body. If you ever need to go back and edit one of your grouped objects, you can hit the Ungroup button, which is to the right of the Grouping button, and your objects will separate. Take note, your objects will separate in the order that they were grouped. Go ahead and try ungrouping and then group your two objects again. Now that we have our basic ray gun, let's add some decorative elements to it. For example, let's make some space-age holes in the body for a futuristic feel. First, let's drag the cylinder shape into the work plane. Next, let's rotate it by 90 degrees so that the circular base faces the ray gun. The cylinder is too big, so let's scale it down by clicking and holding down one of the corners while pressing down on the Shift key. Now, let's move it into position so that it's roughly touching the middle of the ray gun's body. This may be a little tricky. Remember, you can hold down the Shift key to move in one direction at a time. Now, because we want to make a hole, we will need to make sure that the cylinder shape appears on both sides of the ray gun. If it doesn't, simply stretch the cylinder until it pierces through the other side. Now we're going to learn about holes in Tinkercad. Any shape can be turned into a hole, such as our cylinder shape. Holes allow us to cut out shapes from other shapes. They are like the scissors of Tinkercad. We can use this in a variety of ways to create new shapes, holes for things like key rings, or to make solid objects hollow. For now, we are going to use them to add some decorative elements. First, select the cylinder shape, and then in the floating dialog box, click on the circular button titled Hole. Notice that our cylinder has become transparent. Now, select both the cylindrical hole that we just made and the ray gun and group them. Navigate around our ray gun and take a look at the hole we just made. Let's add 2 more holes to our ray gun to make it look even more space age. Instead of repeating our steps from the beginning, let's just click the Ungroup button. Notice that while our transparent cylinder came back, our basic ray gun stayed intact. That is because Ungroup will only ungroup one object at a time. Now that we have our cylindrical hole back, let's copy that object by either clicking the Duplicate button in the upper left corner or pressing Command-C on our keyboard. Let's drag the new cylindrical hole to the left of the original hole. Let's make another copy and drag that one to the right of the original hole. Now select all 3 holes and the ray gun by holding down the Shift key and then click the grouping button. Now we have 3 decorative holes in our ray gun. Now all that's left to do is the bubble nozzle. Drag a cone onto the work plane from the Shapes panel on the right, and take the next few minutes to add it to our ray gun using all the tools you just learned: navigating, rotating, scaling, stretching, and grouping. Feel free to add a few more elements of your own design and then come back to this video. Now that you've completed your design, click on the Export button in the upper right-hand side of your editor. Notice you will have an option of STL or OBJ file. Both are good general file types, but for today, let's download the STL file. Now you have a file that you made from scratch and can 3D print. But before we do that, let's attach our ray gun to the robot keychain we downloaded from Thingiverse. Right next to the Export button is the Import button. Click it and open the custom robot keychain file. If you don't have it from the last video, it can be found on Thingiverse.com by searching for Customizable Robot Keychain. The first thing we will notice is that the robot is much smaller than the ray gun we just made. So let's scale down the ray gun. Now, let's rotate it so that it will lie flat in the hand of the robot. Now let's move it into position so that it overlaps the robot's hands. We also want to make sure that the ray gun is flush against the work plane. We can do that by making sure that when we move it up and down, we see a 0 in the number box. We can also type in 0 into that box and Tinkercad will move it for us. Now, select both the robot and the ray gun and group them. And we're done! Notice that Tinkercad treats any object we get from Thingiverse like any of the basic shapes we use to make our ray gun. This means that you can import several different files into Tinkercad from Thingiverse, and then modify and merge them together to create a single 3D printable object. Download your new object so that we can use it in the next video, and you'll learn how to 3D print using Cura.